We ready? Okay. All right, live. Welcome. Welcome, T. Joe from Las Vegas and Andre with a root canal. So, we welcome those who can't be with us tonight. And glad you're with us on the live feed. So, tonight we'll talk about title Form No Image. And we're going to go to the Ten Commandments. We're going to go to the Ten Commandments. Exodus 20. If you have your Bible, you go to Exodus 20. And I want to read two of the Ten Commandments. And before we do, I feel that I should be responsible and explain that we are not technically under the jurisdiction of the Ten Commandments. That's not popular to say. I love the Ten Commandments. I think you can put them on the wall of the school or the courthouse. I think it's fantastic. I love it. The things that the Ten Commandments talk about, however, the things that they talk about have a spiritual implication that is the emphasis today. The natural implication is not as much the emphasis. When Israel was under the Ten Commandments, there was a natural implication. For instance, the Sabbath. They truly were supposed to physically rest on the Sabbath. However, Christ comes, he fulfills not only the Ten Commandments, but the entire law of Moses. He fulfills it, right? And then he turns this thing spiritual. And everything has a spiritual implication. So when I read through the Old Testament, I don't read it through the eyes of I'm under the jurisdiction of what it's saying. I read it through the eyes of, Lord, what is the spiritual meaning behind what it's saying? Okay? There's a spiritual implication. So now when I read to Sabbath, I think spiritually rest. I'm to be at a spiritual rest. I'm not to toil spiritually. I am to rest. I am to rest so that Christ in me can toil. So Christ in me can work. Okay? So there's a spiritual implication to everything that God has taught through the Scriptures. And now that the Spirit who writes the laws and commands of God on your heart, all right, now he can spiritually teach us the spiritual implication of things. So I don't read through some of the Ten Commandments as a physical rule or a physical law to put us under. No, Christ has freed us from the law. But it is Christ now who says, my words are spirit and they are life. What is the spiritual implication? So I want to read in Exodus 20, we're going to look at verse 4. And I don't think I have a ton to share tonight, so it may be a little shorter than usual. We shall see. But he says in Exodus 20, verse 4, he says, you shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. So he says, you should not make for yourself an idol in the form of heavenly things. That's the emphasis. He mentions earthly things as well, but specifically for what it says next, you shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. So the emphasis here, you do not form anything, an idol, that you, whether it's of images of heaven or images of the earth, for the purpose of bowing down and worshiping it. All right? So, physically speaking, naturally speaking, the law is saying do not physically form an idol in the image of anything that you're going to go and worship. All right? Now, let's look at it spiritually. what do you think they would form? They would form something that they thought they should worship. So they would think, what is God like? What is God? Let me form in my thoughts, let me form what I think God is like. And then subject my life to bowing down to that image that I have formed of God. They would form a golden calf and call it Yahweh. Here is Yahweh who delivered you from Egypt. That was their idea because they came up through Egypt. And Egypt had its ideas, that culture had its ideas of what a calf was. And they took their Egyptian understanding of ideas of what a calf was, equated it to Yahweh God, and said, that's what we think God is like. Now, we laugh at that because we don't think much of cattle. But in that society, there was a higher value on that. So they would, based on what they thought was valuable, their ideas formed and fashioned what they thought God was like, and they actually made an idol and physically bowed down to it and worshiped it. All right? We do that whole thing without physically acting it out. We do it spiritually. We form an idea of what we think God is like based on what our mainstream churchiology of the day tells us about God or assumes about God, popularizes about God, and we get these ideas about God based on our society, the Western church. And then we formulate, based on our ideas, a standard of living or a form of worship. We are bowing down and worshiping this idea that we have formed God to be. That's the reality. When a society or an individual takes their own ideas about God based on human intellect and we reason what God is like, we're figuratively forming an image from our imagination, our image maker. Our imagination is our image maker. We imagine what God is like and we form an image in our ideas of what He's like. And then we begin to form and fashion our life in worship to that idea. Well, what if the idea is wrong? Then we're worshiping something that is not God. See how dangerous this is? What if our idea of God is wrong? What if the standard of Christianity is wrong? What if the standard of what the church says Christianity is wrong? The more wrong the standard is, the worse you want to be at hitting the standard. Right, Jordan? I can hit a bullseye all day long. If it's the wrong target, I'm off. Right? If the standard is wrong, he who is best at hitting the standard is the worst of all sinners. No wonder Paul said he was the chief of sinners. He was hitting the standard that his people set, and the standard was all wrong. You see the problem with forming an image, forming in your imagination. what you think God is like? Think about how dangerous that is. Think about how dangerous it is to read through the text and form an image of what you think God is like. And then bow down and worship based on your lifestyle, meeting that standard. Think, what are the odds of that standard being correct? Think about that. A flesh man, made of flesh from below. Never seen heaven, never seen God. And guessing through his own earthly, worldly, fleshly, from a deceptive part of who he is, from his flesh, reasoning what he thinks God is like. What are the chances of that being correct? I could tell you it's very small. That's why there's 48,000 different versions of it just in Christianity alone. That's why there's 48,000 different versions of it. Just in Christianity. We're not talking about other world religions. Just in Christianity. 48,000 different versions of the standard of Christ. Why? Because we are from below and we think and speak as one from below. And when man tries to form and fashion what he thinks the standard of God is like through human wisdom, he gets a wrong standard. And the better he is at hitting that standard, the further from God he is. Oh, now we read this commandment differently. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven or earth or in the waters. You shall not bow down to them. Don't think physically. The image we form of God in our mindset. If it don't come from God, it will be wrong. It cannot be right. It can't. Look at verse 7. Now watch this. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord would not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Now think about name. You know what a name is? Norris, if you left this room right now and somebody mentioned your name, the reality of who you are will come up in all of our minds. Your face will come up, your character will come up, the person you are would be revealed in our minds immediately. You wouldn't even have to be here. Your name alone would identify you. God is saying, don't misuse my identity. See, it's not just a cuss word that we've limited this to, like using his name in vain. You shouldn't do that. But that's not the fullness of what this is about. That's not even getting started. He's saying, don't misrepresent my identity. How do we do that? Well, we form an image from our imagination. We form an image of what we think he is like, and we identify him as that. And that's misusing his identity or name. And then we go out in the world and we say, you should worship this God that I've formed in my mind of what Jesus is like. Or my pastor formed this idea of what Jesus is like. And it's nothing like what Jesus is like. But we're saying that's Jesus. Are we not misusing his name? You see the danger in human wisdom? Forming an idea or an image of what God is like, and then putting God's name on that image. It's just like taking the golden calf, saying, this is Yahweh who delivered us from Egypt. They misused his name. They put his name on something that was not him. So when the church gets this idea of what God is like, and it's not him, and we're putting his name on it, we're misusing his name. We're misusing his identity. I'm going to make a bold statement. Unless God reveal it, it can't be right. It's going to be a slant on it. It's going to water down. It's going to water down the power of the reality of who he is. See, right up front, God just tells them right up front, we'll give you 10 commandments, and right up front, don't come up with your ideas about what I'm like and go form some image of it and start living according to that image. And don't put my name on that thing and misuse my name that way. So where does that leave us when we read through the scriptures? Where does that lead us? Where does that leave us? It leaves us desperately needing God to identify himself to us. It leaves us desperately desiring, eagerly desiring God to make himself known. If a man makes him known to you, it's probably going to be wrong. It's probably going to pull away from the potency of who he is, from the power of who he is. Man's ideas about God will water down and taint the reality of the power of who he is. That's the issue. That's why God is saying, quit forming things and putting my name on it. Quit forming things based on your ideas, your religious mindset, and your religious ideas. That's what this is saying. This is what it ought to be. Let me show you the way in Psalm 67. Let me show you what it ought to be. Psalm 67, verse 1. Watch this. Remember what we said about name. It's the identity. Name is the identifier of a person. Watch this. May God be gracious to us. In other words, may God do something we can't do. That's what grace means. God do something that we can't do. May God be gracious to us and bless us. Watch. And may God do this and make his face shine upon us. You know what a face is? It's like a name. It's an identification. Even your cell phone identifies you by your face now. A face identifies the person. This is why no man can see his face and live. His face can only shine upon us. See, if man saw the face of God, he would think he knew everything about God and would never seek him again. So God hides his face, but he lets the effect of his face shine upon his people. He lets his identity become known to his people. You see, he's saying, God, by your grace, you must reveal yourself to me. You must shine your face upon me. He's saying he says, God, bless us by making your face or your identity, you could put your name there, your identity to be known to us. Guys, that verse, that very unpopular verse there, is the reason you exist. The reason you exist is for God to make himself known to you. That's why we're here. There's a churchianity myth. It's a myth. And it says that we are to make God known. I've heard it said, we're to make him famous. It's wrong. It's not why the church exists. The church does not exist. The church does not exist to reach the world. It doesn't. The church exists as a people who look to God that he might make himself known to the church. That's why you exist. Now, the effect of that is people are reached. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to be postured and positioned for God to make himself known to you. And if that happens, the world will, as a result, that domino will fall and the world will see him and they will come to him. But they will come to him not because the church draws them, but because Christ draws them through the church. Or outside of the church, in a bar room. Christ will draw them one-on-one wherever they are. But he wants to do it through man. You see, he says, may God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine upon us. What does it say next? So that your ways, which we know nothing about, so that your ways may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. You see how backwards churchianity is from Christianity? Christianity is what Christ is leading. Churchianity is what man is leading. Christianity is what Christ is leading on behalf of the Father. Churchianity is what man is leading on behalf of the Father. One is Jesus, one is Adam. One is Jesus, one's a Pharisee. One is spirit, one is flesh, one is truth, one is deceit, one is light, one is dark. One is wheat, one is chaff. One is from above, one is from below. One is truth, one is deceitful. One is spirit, one is flesh. One is life, one is death. Christianity is what Christ is leading on behalf of the Father. Churchianity is what man is leading on behalf of the Father. He says, if God is gracious and if God makes his face shine upon us, then God's ways will be known on the earth in all nations, it says. But see, here's what the church does. The church skips God. Churchianity skips God and says, if we go make him known, to the nations, then God will be pleased with us and he'll shine his face on us. Isn't that the idea? Isn't that the mindset that most Christians have? Why is it that most Christians feel guilty if they're not witnessing for Christ enough? Why is it that most Christians feel this urgency to reach the lost? Because they feel like if that is done, then God will be pleased with me and then his face will shine upon me. You can't argue with that. That is so matter of fact. That is the mindset that churchianity has taught. But yet the Bible teaches completely opposite. It says that if you will just be still and let God's face shine upon you, and we'll start with receiving God's favor, then the world will see Christ in you and they will come to him. We're not opposed to reaching the lost. We just know that we can't reach the lost. The Bible gives a much bigger a much bigger charge on reaching the Christian. It does. Jesus said things like this. He said, I don't even pray for the world. Did you know that? And then he goes and prays for who? His disciples. And he says, Father, make them one, even as we are one. Make them uniform in uniformity. Teach them the chain of command. That whatever you're up to, if they're in the right chain of command, whatever you're up to, Father, it'll come through me, and by the Spirit, it'll go through them, and they'll be one. And you know what he said after that? He said, I don't pray for the world, but I pray for them to become one so that, guess what he says next? So that the world will know I came. See, the emphasis is on the church. The emphasis is on the church to let God shine his face upon them so that the world who he loved and died for can now see him, and that's the only way they can come to him. They can't come to him by the Christians, by the Christian convincing him that he's a sinner and that if he repeat this, it'll go fine for him. That is such a pitiful picture of Christ. And then we put his name on that. You don't think that's misusing his name? If I can give you ever stole something? Yeah. You ever lusted after the woman? Yeah. Oh, so you're an adulterer and a thief. Don't you think you're a sinner and you need to get saved? Oh, yeah, I guess I do. Okay, repeat this. Okay, I repeat it. Okay, that's Christ. We'll put his name on that. That's the fullness of Christ. That's the greatness of Jesus right there. What do you think that does to his image? Right? Isn't it? But nobody considers that, right, Chris? Nobody considers that. Until you consider it and you realize, oh, that's so wrong. But the church teaches, go reach the lost and God will be pleased with you. No. The lost will be reached because of God's pleasure with you. Because of God's face shining on you. Everything the church is teaching to accomplish, I'm going to say it this way. The church teaches that it's outward. Christ teaches that it's inward. It's the work of Christ in the believer that the believer walks away and the fruit of that work begins to bear and the world sees it. And the church has confused that with the believer producing fruit that will draw the lost. It'll never happen. It's inward. The work is inward. Churchianity teaches that the work is outward. Christianity teaches that the work is inward. The work is inward. And the world witnesses the fruit of that work outwardly. May God be gracious and bless us and make his face shine upon us. That's the beginning of it. That's where it starts. And the effect of that is that the world is drawn. I mean, I can prove it. Jesus says he draws men to himself. What part of that is for me to do? He says, matter of fact, they can't come to the Father unless I draw them. What part of that leads us to think, okay, Lord, before you draw them, let me go do it? Like, what is that? Where do we get that from? Where did we come up with that? Jesus says he must draw them, and yet the believer assumes that anything the believer does is Christ? No. Every part of Jesus having to draw them means the believer has to be still. Every part of it. Every part of it means the believer needs to get out of the way. So that if Christ come alive in the believer, and an unbeliever comes to you on behalf of Christ, who are they really coming through? Who are they really coming to? If Christ is at work in me, if Christ is speaking in me, if Christ is working in me, Christ is acting in me, and a believer is drawn to me on behalf of God, who are they really drawn to? The one that's at work in me. In fact, If it's anything other than Christ, if I draw a man to God, they're going to get a false God. They're going to get a God based on flesh's perspective, and flesh can only give birth to flesh. Could it be that what the church has heavily burdened itself with, thinking it's God, is the very thing getting in the way of God? Wow. What a deception. Let me show you the approach. Psalm 40. And then we're going to stop. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Watch the approach. Watch the life of the believer here. This is David. David was, not only was he the king of Israel, but he was the king of trusting God. I mean, he abided. He got it. Watch. I waited patiently for the Lord. See, there's a picture of stillness, right? Like there's a picture of be still and know that I am God. There's a picture of abiding. I waited patiently for the Lord. Now watch. He turned to me and heard my cry. So we see this picture of David. He's being still and he's crying out to God. Perfect. This is the picture of the believer saying, Lord, I'm crying out to you. Make yourself known to me. Reveal yourself. You could say it in the form of make your face shine upon me. It's all the same thing. If he makes himself known to you, he is shining his identity upon you. He is revealing himself to you. David's crying out. I'm being patient. I'm being still. I'm waiting for you to reveal yourself to me. That's abiding. Lord, I want to see, you could pray, Lord, I want to see the effect of Christ in me have its effect in the world. We can pray these things. We should pray these things. This is prayer. This is better than praying for a Cadillac, right? You end up with a cat. Said, Lord, a Cadillac, not a cat. But this is the prayer. Lord, I pray that you reveal yourself to me. I always go back to Adam. The simplicity of, they didn't call it Christianity back then, but that's what we call it. But the simplicity of, you could say, a relationship between God and man that we call Christianity. The simplicity was so simple. It was God would reveal himself to Adam. God would make himself known to Adam. And he would care for Adam. And Adam just knew God. You realize that there was never a fall, there would have never been anything else needed. And then Jesus fixed the fall thing, so there's really nothing else needed. Or he didn't fix it. Did he fix it or not? When he said, is it finished, did he fix it or not? If we say we believe he fixed it and say, but there's still some things needed, then we don't really believe he fixed it. So if he fixed it, then we're right back where Adam was with God before the fall, which is God caring for us. We're talking spiritually now. The physical thing is not fixed. It's fixed, but it hasn't played out yet. So I get that. Now you have to go work and earn money and to eat. I get that. That's different. But that's not spiritual. We're talking about spiritual. As far as spirituality goes, it's fixed. It's fully fixed. It's just a matter of time before it fully plays itself out. And the flesh is dead. We think that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. When the flesh dies, the reality of what's been fully fixed now comes fully visible spiritually. Like the moment you die, you will become fully aware of God. Like fully aware, like the fullness of God constantly. There's only one thing stopping that, and it's our flesh. It's living. So, and I say live as long as you can because God wants you to. It's God's plan. He wants to have a relationship with you in this life through that body because he wants the world to see the effect of that. Okay? So do it as long as you can, Joe. All right? But spiritually speaking, if the thing that Adam broke is now fixed, what part of what Adam and God had is not there? It's fixed. So why does churchianity add so much to God revealing himself to Adam, God caring for Adam, and Adam experiencing God? Why has the church added so much to that? If Christ fixed it, then if the church adds to it, they're taking away from what Christ fixed. Churchianity versus Christianity. Gosh, it just makes a lot of sense, and it's pretty simple, but it's just not considered. It's just not considered. It is here. So David says, I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. So he's waiting and he's crying out to God, reveal yourself to me. Care for me. God, you build this relationship with me and you. And I'm watching for it, and I'm not getting in the way of it. I'm waiting. Watch. He lifted me out of the slimy pit. I like to picture flesh there. He lifts me out of my flesh. Out of the mud and mire. What is mud? Water and dirt. The flesh, dirt, getting its hands on the spirit, water, things, makes mud. I cry to him, I wait for him. He lifts me out of that lifestyle. He lifts me out of that. And what does he do? He sets my foot on the rock, Christ. He lifts me out of the Adam in me, the Pharisee in me, trying to become like God by means of me. Trying to be Christ-like by means of me. He lifts me out of that and puts me on the rock, Christ, and says, I'm going to be Christ-like by the means of Christ in me. You see the difference? And I'm waiting on that. And I'm watching for that. And he heard my cry. And he gave me a firm place to stand. Now, what's the result of that? What's the result of that? What's the result of waiting on God and God pulling you out of the first birth junk and setting you on the Christ rock? No longer churchianity based on flesh in me, but Christianity based on Christ in me. What's the result? Well, here's the result. He put a new song in my mouth. There's joy. There's life. That's the eternal life. A hymn of praise to our God. And what's the result? There it is. Many will see. Now the world's getting reached. And fear. And put their trust in the Lord. Did you see the order? The order was not go reach all the souls and then God will be pleased with you and he'll put you on a nice firm. No. It's never about the church reaching the world. It's always about the church experiencing Christ and the world witnessing that experience. We thought we were supposed to witness to them. They're supposed to actually witness Christ in you. You see it? Lord, make your face shine upon us. Then the nations will see Lord, lift me out of my first birth and set me on the rock, Christ in me. And then many will see and put their trust in you. It's not about the church reaching the lost. It's about the church allowing Christ to reach them. It's about the believer letting Christ reach the believer. This is why Jesus said, go make disciples of all nations. Baptizing them in the name or the identity of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Teach the believer to be baptized in the identity of God. That was the Great Commission. Teach the church to get out of the way so that Christ can come through. That was John's initial message. He's saying, go throughout all the world and teach the church to let the identity of God come alive in them. Then the world will be reached. Then he who loved the world that he gave his only son, then the effect of that can be seen. We're not opposed to reaching the lost. We just know we can't reach the lost. Christ must reach the lost. But Christ won't reach the lost through a believer till the believer gets out of the way and lets Christ come alive in him. We want the lost to be reached, but we want the proper order. Christ, I must be reached by you in order for the world to see the effect of that. Amen? That's the end of the teaching. We can take questions and comments. I feel like that went pretty well. Let's hear your thoughts on it.